It's kinda sweet, right? I mean, I could just picture them discussing villain things and world destruction over tea and cookies. If there's one thing villains love to do in the comics, it is team up with other villains. We have already seen very interesting partnerships in the MCU, like the eccentric Justin Hammer and the brilliant Whiplash, Thanos and Ronan the Accuser, and even the former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent turned power broker and her friend who is really good at leaping or something. The MCU has some of the smartest villains put to screen, and it's only a matter of time before they realize they are stronger together. In today's video, we explore the possible combinations of MCU villains who could sign that bottom line in a partnership deal to bring doom. Which villains are difficult to work with, and which are definitely the ones who did the whole group project but let everyone put their name on it? Let's find out right now. Tanelier Tavan made his on-screen debut in the post-credit scene of Thor: The Dark World. Dressed in very weird regalia with some interesting makeup choices, the Collector has been a presence in the MCU for a long time, attempting to amass power and increase his collection. Located on nowhere, the Collector naturally gathered all wild and mystical objects and living things he could find in the universe. This ranged from dark elves to dogs to weapons and even to Infinity Stones. The last we saw the Collector, Thanos had infiltrated his sacred collection and successfully obtained the Reality Stone, left with him by the Asgardians. The Collector we saw, however, was merely an illusion, leaving the whereabouts of the real Collector unknown to us, though his place of residence wasn't looking too hot. I have to believe he is still alive, plotting his revenge for the destruction of his collection. In order to achieve this revenge, who better to look for help in than his literal brother? The Grandmaster was the leader of Sakaar and the creator of the Contest of Champions, which saw some of the most powerful beings in the universe fight for the entertainment of millions. These beings included the Hulk, Thor, Korg, and possibly even Beta Ray Bill, Ares, and Man-Thing. Last we saw this man who would melt his cousin without thinking twice, he was on the unfortunate side of an uprising on Sakaar, even though we all know it was a tie. His fate is certainly undecided, and I have to imagine that the Grandmaster could use a healthy dose of revenge as well. In the comics, the Grandmaster and the Collector are both elders of the universe and are often depicted as brothers. The Grandmaster is an expert in all worlds games and skills, and could likely use those skills to aid in the rebuilding of the Collector's lost treasures.
Who's ready to play?
Perhaps we may even get an appearance from some other elders, but for now, I just want to see Benicio del Toro and Jeff Goldblum take on the universe. I'll bet you believe that Ghost, for all intensive purposes, has turned to the good side. I, on the other hand, happen to believe that the daughter of one of the most notorious Ant-Man villains, Elias Starr, is certainly capable of a little more mischief at the very least. Ava Starr was a girl who developed very painful powers in her father's experiment that took the life of him and his wife. She became known as Ghost for her phasing abilities and worked as an assassin for S.H.I.E.L.D. Dr. Bill Foster helped to raise Ava, even promising to find a cure for her, but always reined Ava in when she wanted to do things like kidnap little girls. She even befriended the Pyms and Van Dynes enough to get help from them in saving her life using quantum energy, a solution that seems temporary at best. I believe the death or separation of Bill Foster in the future of the MCU could see Ava back to full villain status. Perhaps a trip to the quantum realm in an attempt to heal herself could have her run into a familiar face, Darren Cross. I know what you're thinking, isn't he dead? I mean, maybe. Darren Cross was Hank Pym's successor and creator of the Yellowjacket armor. After his rediscovery of the Pym particle, Darren went on a miniature rampage in a little girl's bedroom and nearly destroyed Thomas the Tank Engine. I tend to lean towards the idea that the destruction of Yellowjacket's suit merely sent him into the quantum realm, albeit in a much more painful manner. I would theorize that Darren Cross has been living in the quantum realm since the events of the first Ant-Man film, looking for a way out. Similar to when Janet found herself trapped, I believe Darren could have gained some abilities that would make him a much more powerful foe. The two villains have at one time or another found themselves with common enemies. It would be very interesting to see Ghost using her abilities to free Darren from the quantum realm, in return for his help in seeking revenge for the loss in one way or another of Bill Foster. Personally, I've been highly anticipating the return of Chiwetel Ejiofor's Baron Mordo. He was a student of the Ancient One who, after her death, helped Stephen Strange and Wong to defeat Caecilius and his zealots and ultimately Dormammu. Mordo, being a man of strict principle, was extremely disturbed at the breaking of foundational boundaries which Doctor Strange used to win the day. The last we have seen of Baron Karl Mordo was in a post-credit scene, where it seems he has held so strongly to these principles that they have actually led him on a dark path. His new goal in life is to get rid of the sorcerers in the world, as they are responsible for the fragility of reality. He does not want every sorcerer gone, however, and I believe he could find some useful help in another magic wielder who is waiting patiently for someone to rescue her. Agatha Harkness is a witch from Salem times who absorbed all the power from her coven, making her one powerful sorceress. She manipulated Wanda during her control of the people of Westview, and has mastered magic over hundreds of years of existence. The last we saw of her, Wanda subjected her to an exceptionally dark punishment. She would remain as a brainwashed, friendly neighbor in the alternate reality that is Westview. The limiting of sorcerers would absolutely align with Agatha's goals, so it is very possible that these two magic wielders would find a partnership beneficial. I could actually see a scenario where Agatha uses Mordo, promising to help him limit the magic of the world for the betterment of it, restoring balance and ensuring the safety of reality, while in actuality she is using him to lead her to sources of power which she can absorb, gaining strength for a rematch with the Scarlet Witch. Sharon Carter went from S.H.I.E.L.D. agent to fugitive to powerful crime lord in a sort of impressive amount of time. Now controlling the large criminal network in Madripoor, Sharon Carter has adopted the new anonymous moniker of the Power Broker. Seeming to have given up on the government that gave up on her, Sharon is now interested in gaining money and power. The last we saw her, she was officially reinstated with the United States government, with secret devious plans to use the resources for nefarious purposes.
We're about to have full access to government secrets, prototype weapons, you name it.
Sharon will obviously be seeking beneficial partnerships, and I believe the first person to turn to her will be the Mandarin. One of the most notorious terrorist organizations has been led by the Mandarin for who knows how long. The Ten Rings has contacts all over the planet, and have had crucial dealings in the MCU, including the original kidnapping of Tony Stark. We have already seen from trailer footage that Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings may have some scenes set in Madripoor. It stands to reason that the leader of the world's most feared terror organization would form a mutually beneficial partnership with the newest crime leader, who just gained inside access to the United States government. One of the longest and widest career varieties in villainy, the Red Skull led a Nazi science group known as Hydra in World War II. Johann Schmidt was a German scientist who forcibly took the super soldier serum from Abraham Erskine. The result was increased strength and endurance similar to Captain America, with, an obvious cosmetic side effect. During his final fight with Captain America, he was blasted into space via the Tesseract, seemingly to be unheard from again. That was of course until he reappeared as the Keeper of the Soul Stone, cursed to guard a treasure that he cannot possess. In the main Marvel timeline, the Soul Stone was obtained and subsequently destroyed by Thanos. So, without a Soul Stone to guard, I have to imagine that Johann is probably free to go. Now I have serious doubts that Red Skull's next move would be to turn over a new leaf. With a new knowledge of the cosmos, the Red Skull would turn his old dreams for Hydra into a galactic-wide event. It would be helpful to have a partner in this endeavor, and the best available is Yon Rogg. Yon Rogg was a high-ranking general in the Kree Star Force, and partial mentor to Carol Danvers while she lived life as a Kree. He captured and deceived her, leading an unjust war against a peaceful faction of Skrulls for the Supreme Intelligence. Last we saw him, Captain Marvel, now realizing her full potential and range of powers, swatted him like a fly. Being merciful, Carol sent Yon Rogg back to Hala to pass on the message that she was coming. The Kree may look slightly different if Carol did take the trip there, but they, and especially Yon Rogg, may be looking to rebuild and reconquer. I think the next place Red Skull will go is to Hala, the Kree homeworld. Their shared goal of conquest could unite them, but Red Skull would take over, using the Kree's resources to turn the Kree Empire into one that follows Hydra's ideals surrounding the suppression of freedom, with his first officer Yon Rogg at his side. The Sovereign were the annoyingly stuck-up antagonists who hired the Guardians of the Galaxy to protect their Anulax batteries. Or is it Harbulary batteries? After Rocket subsequently stole the very things he was hired to defend, the Sovereign began an all-out assault on the Guardians. Refusing to sacrifice a member of their own race, each of whom are bred to be physically perfect, the Sovereign used remote-piloted ships to engage their enemies in battle. After this pursuit, the leader of the Sovereign, Aisha, wasted the planet's resources in her quest for vengeance. In a post-credits scene for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, we see that Aisha has created a new birthing pod, which would bring to life the next team-up in Phase 4. Adam Warlock is an extremely powerful being, famous for wielding the Infinity Stones, and is closely tied with the Soul Stone in particular. He was created to be the perfect human with enhanced abilities like super strength, speed, and flight. Adam Warlock is often a hero in the comics, and sometimes an anti-hero. On rare occasions, however, Adam Warlock is depicted as a villain. I believe his introduction into the MCU would see him take a similar path as the Maximoff twins, who started out as villains seeking revenge and teaming up with the larger villain, only to realize that guy was crazy and they were truly heroes after all. Given that she created him, I believe Adam will start as a servant for the wishes of Aisha and the Sovereign, forming a deadly duo, until Adam walks his heroic path. Justin Hammer is a smooth talker, businessman, and lackluster weapons designer. Rotting in a prison cell since the end of Iron Man 2, Justin Hammer of Hammer Industries really made his mark by showing us how he gets others to do all the work for him. He was used as a pawn by Whiplash in a greater scheme to get revenge on Tony Stark, and wound up behind bars for freeing the criminal. This charismatic villain is itching for a return to the spotlight if anything, but he would most definitely need some help to accomplish that. The best help in this scenario would be a little muscle to back him up. Abomination is now confirmed to return in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, but started out a very long time ago as the main villain of the Incredible Hulk. Emil Blonsky was a top-notch soldier who combined several chemicals in his body trying to enhance his combat ability. The result speaks for itself. Also spending time behind bars since Phase 1, this villain's return is highly anticipated, and he will have a future beyond his next appearance. I like to think that the Abomination's appearance in Shang-Chi does not yet represent his freedom from custody, and perhaps Justin Hammer and Emil Blonsky find themselves in different parts of the same facility. A breakout organized by Hammer could put Abomination in his debt, forming a duo that would make for comedy gold. Baron Helmut Zemo is responsible for the disassembling of the Avengers in the MCU. A former Sokovian military soldier revealed to be a wealthy baron, Zemo is one of the most intelligent villains the MCU has seen. Angry about the destruction of his country and the death of his family, he is one of a small class of villains who actually saw their plan succeed. Last we saw him, the Dora Milaje were taking him away to a Wakandan prison for the death of King T'Chaka. He's already escaped one prison, so it's only a matter of time before he gets out of this one. Once he does, however, he will seek a powerful ally, and a promising candidate is Taskmaster. Little has actually been revealed about this Black Widow villain, but if his comic history is of any value, then Taskmaster will be one of the greatest fighters in the MCU. With a unique ability to mimic the fighting styles of his enemies, we have already seen Taskmaster appear to master the techniques of characters like Captain America and Hawkeye. This villainous mastermind combined with one of the world's greatest fighters could be a deadly combination. They also could team up in another form if they both prove to be evil, but good enough for Val to form the Dark Avengers, joining US Agent and potentially several other MCU villains as a super team. Ultron was probably Tony's least favorite child. Between him and Morgan, I guess it's no contest. An artificial intelligence born to life with the combination of the Mind Stone and a defense program created by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, Ultron wreaked havoc, nearly destroying the planet by creating multiple robot copies of himself and turning an entire country into a meteor. Ultron was ultimately defeated, blocked from the net by his own creation, Vision, and supposedly destroyed. There are many theories surrounding the possible return of this deadly and evil robot, but I believe it will take an especially smart villain whose return is also highly anticipated to bring this robot back to life. Enter the Leader. Samuel Stearns was a scientist extremely interested in helping Bruce Banner solve his medical condition. Stearns, however, was probably not one to follow any sort of official guidelines, and made several mistakes in the pursuit of science. His first and greatest mistake was creating Abomination, though to be fair, he was rather under threat. A confrontation with the monster led to our last sight of Stearns with an open head wound, and Banner's blood sample leaking in, deforming his head before our very eyes. It sometimes seems that Marvel would like to bury the Incredible Hulk film and pretend it never happened. But with the return of Thaddeus Ross, there is still hope that Tim Blake Nelson's The Leader is out there somewhere. One impressive thing he could do to show how crazy and intelligent he has gotten over the years would be to bring back a villain who nearly destroyed the world. There has got to be some kind of digital footprint left by Ultron that I'm sure Stearns could find. Who would be more likely to fake their death than the Master of Illusions? Quentin Beck was a disgruntled Stark employee who tricked a teenager into giving him a billion-dollar weapons system with the help of his special effects team. In one way or another, Mysterio will come back. Whether his death was just his latest trick, or Team Mysterio keeps the memory of Quentin Beck alive through their continued hijinks, he will return. Unable to take down Peter Parker on his own, however, I believe his next appearance will require other villains to do some of the heavy lifting. Adrian Toomes is sitting in a cell somewhere thanks to Spider-Man. Just a simple father trying to provide for his family, his contract for work was undercut, turning him to a life of crime in order to provide. While he may not have given away Spider-Man's identity to Mac Gargan, he could very well have been hiding it so that he could deal with Peter himself. I believe these two Spidey villains could not only pair up, but full-on team up with, about 4 other members? Spider-Man No Way Home will see the return of villains from other Spider-Man franchises into the MCU. The films have quickly built up enough Spider-Man villains to form the infamous Sinister Six, a team which I'm sure Mysterio and Vulture would be eager to join. 2 can certainly be as bad as 1, or even more so when it involves MCU villains. Which existing MCU bad guys do you think should team up in future phases? And don't say Mephisto. Okay, fine, Mephisto.